Skeleton Crew episode 5 is here, and this episode blew my freaking mind. Okay, let's get it out of the way. I am dressed as Santa. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, but we gotta talk about this 5th episode. From even more Old Republic references to Jod stabbing these kids in the back to a freaking lightsaber. I had very high expectations coming into this 5th episode, but this exceeded all of them. But there is a lot going on in this episode, so without further ado, let's break it all down. Episode 5 is titled, You Have a Lot to Learn About Pirates. Now right away, this title has 3 different meanings. The pirates in reference here could be the group of pirates that have been chasing them down for the last 3 episodes, or it could be in reference to Tak-Renid, SM-33's old captain, and the legendary pirate who owned this treasure. But the third meaning behind this title, You Have a Lot to Learn About Pirates, is of course, Jod would. Our 4 main kids put too much trust in this pirate, and well, it came back to bite them. But before we get to that, let's go back to the beginning of the episode. You might have forgot because this 5th episode has so much going on, but this episode opens on At-Attin. We see Wim's dad, Wendell, sitting at what looks to be a cubicle. Not that long ago, he saw his son and these kids blast off of the planet. And you can tell in this scene right here, he looks pretty stressed. We learn very quickly that he and the other parents, excluding Fern's mom, Farah, have put together a plan to try to get a message out to the kids. Neil's mom, Numa, comes in and tells Wendell that they need his help. They need to get an access code for the barrier so that they can send a message out. And she has this device that Wendell can plug into his computer because he doesn't have clearance to do that. However, he gets caught pretty quickly. This security droid comes over and says that they've detected an energy surge at his terminal. The droid asks him to stand up and show what he's hiding behind his back. He got caught. The droid takes this device and the information to Farah, Fern's mom, where she tells the droid to delete all records of this happening and to power off. Farah is also trying to contact their kids, but she's trying to do it the right way, trying to request a meeting with the supervisor, the guy, girl, or droid who runs this town, but it's taking too long, and the other parents are not that patient. They're worried about their kids. Wendell tells Farah that the supervisor is not going to help them. They need to do it on their own. Farah finally reluctantly agrees and asks, what's the plan? And I guess we'll never know the plan because we don't see those two for the rest of this episode. I'm guessing episode 6 is going to have an extension of what that plan actually was and how the parents are going to get into contact with the kids, because in one of the trailers for the Skeleton Crew series, we see that Farah successfully sends a message to the kids. We then cut to the space outside of At-Attin. At the end of the last episode, we saw SM-33 turn on the kids and try to tear them apart limb from limb. However, thanks to Neil's heroics and Jod turning him off, the kids didn't die. And KB explains that she rerouted the memory chip so that he won't kill them when they turn him back on. More and more, every single episode, KB is quickly becoming the GOAT of this show. But after a little back and forth between Jod and Fern, they finally turn him on. Fern asks if he remembers where At-Attin is, and Neil says, and please don't tear us limb from limb. But SM-33's response is, those were my old captain's orders. Captain Renid. And that piques Jod's interest, and mine if we're being honest. We learn about a character by the name of Tak-Renid, a legendary pirate who was the captain of SM-33's crew. Jod explains to us and the kids that Tak-Renid was the most infamous pirate that the galaxy had ever seen. He plundered and terrorized whole star systems. Anything that he wanted, he took. And the story goes that he was looking for the treasure on At-Attin. He was on his ship, the Onyx Cinder, which they are on right now, and then he disappeared. His crew, his ship, everything vanished. But Fern doesn't care. She just wants to get back home, asking again if SM-33 knows how to get to At-Attin. And SM-33 says no, but Captain Renid scanned the coordinates to At-Attin, and he kept them hidden in his lair. Next up, Captain Renid's lair, which SM-33 does know how to get there because he's been there a million times. And while on their way to this lair, SM-33 tells them the story that he remembers. On their way to At-Attin, Captain Renid began to suspect a mutiny within his crew, and with the treasure so close, they all began to grow mad with greed. His crew challenged Captain Renid, but SM-33 says that his captain's concubine betrayed him, and she stabbed him with his own dagger. A concubine, in basic terms, is a mistress. So the girl that Captain Renid was sleeping with was the one who murdered him, all for a treasure that we have no idea if it exists or not. Now, interestingly enough, I've heard some fans theorizing that they think Captain Rennet is now the supervisor on At-Attin, which doesn't make sense at all. The supervisor was already around when At-Attin was hidden and Captain Rennet was looking for it, so how could he be the supervisor on the planet and also be looking for the planet? However, nobody's asking the question about his mistress. If she did, in fact, kill the captain, could she have survived the crash and still be alive on At-Attin? Probably not, but it's a better theory than Captain Rennet being the supervisor. But SM-33 does confirm that the Onyx Cinder crash landed into At-Attin, meaning that it had been there for quite some time if it was buried by dirt. We have no timeline on when Captain Rennet was alive. We see later on in this episode that the lair that he used to have is now been turned into a spa, so clearly a lot of time has passed since SM-33 was last there. But 33 gives us an explanation as to what this lair actually is. He describes it as a secret lair, and the place that he was assembled at. It lies in the heart of a lonely mountain. Bubbling pits of mud hide the mangled corpses of the captain's foes. But that description is not what we end up seeing. However, Wim does not look amused at all. He wanted to go on this crazy adventure, but this is not at all what he expected it to be. He dreamt of Jedi and Sith in this awesome cool galaxy, but it's really just dirty and gross and pirates and smugglers and people who are going to stab you in the back everywhere you look. So Jod goes off to find Wim, and he sees him crying. And this is where we learn a lot about Jod. Not only that he can't handle a crying kid, but also that he might have learned some of the Jedi ways. It has not been confirmed whether or not Jod is a Jedi, but this whole spiel that he talks about with Wim about not having attachments and letting your family go is very much the Jedi way. So tell me in the comments below, do you think Jod Nawud is a survivor of Order 66 and was once a Jedi at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant? Jod does tell Wim to remember, your focus determines your reality. Definitely a line that will hold some sort of importance later on in the series. And he wields the Force to give Wim back his datapad, confirming without a doubt that Jod is a Force user. I know a lot of people were still holding out saying all the stuff he did in the first 3 episodes could have just been faked, like Haja in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, but no, he's definitely a Force user. Whether he's a Jedi or not still remains to be seen. But they come out of hyperspace at the planet of Lanupa. This is the home of Captain Renet's lair, or at least it used to be. As they're going into land, SM-33 is still hyping this place up to be this scary place that no one dares to go, as they see these ships out the window, which Jod describes them to be pleasure yachts. A little bit of a more adult references in this episode, even though it's a kid show. From the concubines to the pleasure yachts, it's fun for all in this Skeleton Crew series. They get pulled in by 2 ships that ask if they have a reservation, to which Jod of course says yes. The kids start yelling at each other. We're not supposed to be here. What is Lanupa? And whoever's on the other line hears kids in the background, to which they say our facilities are intended for adults only. No kids allowed. So the kids have to dress up in all the pirate outfits and pretend to be wise old people. And Jod asks for all their Old Republic credits because they're going to need to bribe some people. Now when the kids come down from the ship, we see Wim wearing this pirate hat, which is confirmed later on in the episode to be Captain Renet's hat. As you can see in this holo message, it is the same hat. They are welcomed by this lady, who says, "Welcome to our famous spa at Skullridge Mountain." As they enter, the guards take away all their weapons, but Jod uses the Force to grab his knife back. They also put a restraining bolt on SM-33 because they've had issues with droids in the past. So SM-33 will not be able to cause any danger. On their way in, this lady explains that the banking clan is here for an economic summit. The banking clan was a financial commerce guild in the galaxy that was governed by the Core 5 from the main vault located on the world of Scipio. In the days of the prequel trilogy, they were very important to the Separatist Alliance. Although they did work with both the Republic and the Separatists, they worked more with Count Dooku and Darth Sidious, as you can see some of the members of the banking clan in Attack of the Clones. Yes, the banking clan is made up of Mun, and we do see Mun in this episode. Interestingly enough, during the time of the Empire, the banking clan and the Hutt clan are in sort of a trade war in the Outer Rim. And it just so happens that we see both the Mun and the Hutts on this planet of Lanupa. So although this 5th episode has nothing to do with the Hutts or the Mun, there is that sort of background story going on this planet right now. And the Skeleton Crew just happen to be there with them. But they go to check in for their reservation. And when Jod is asked what this reservation is under, he slides the lady an Old Republic credit. She takes the bribe, and Jod says that his name on the list is Professor Gorlox. Jod then gets noticed by a bounty hunter who calls him Dash Z. At-Attin, just another name for Jod Nawood, to go along with Crimson Jack and Captain Silvo. This bounty hunter is named Pocket. No, not the pocket in your pants, it's spelled like this. And Jod jokingly says, "How long has it been?" To which Pocket responds with, "Oh, you mean since you stole my bounty and left me to drown in a pit of leeches?" But Pocket then tells Jod that she works for a private client, no longer working for the guild, so he shouldn't have to worry that she'll turn him in. And before she leaves, she tells the kids to not trust Jod Nawood. It seems like every character that they come into contact with tells these kids to not trust Jod, and yet he's their only hope.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
And as Pocket leaves, Jod throws down pretty much all the Old Republic credits that he has left because they need to work fast. They get to the room where Jod tells the kids that they've probably already called in his name, meaning the pirates are on their way. SM-33 assures him that this lair is still there. The outside of this place may have changed, but there is no way that they would have found this lair. And what he doesn't really say, but what he means is that there's a bunch of booby traps, so nobody's getting in there alive, because this lair is deep in the heart of this mountain. And he explains that this marking will be where the door is. As the kids are goofing around, Jod turns around and starts yelling at them, telling them that a crew of murderous pirates, not bounty hunters, are on their way, so they gotta work fast. We then cut to a scene where Pocket is talking to Brutus. Now, Brutus is a badass character and all, but I want to see him in action more. It's like my only complaint about this show. I just want more Brutus. But he says that he will send in 2 of his ships. We then cut to the scene where we see this hut. And we don't know who this hut is, whether it's a new hut or one that already exists. It's not one of the twins from the Book of Boba Fett. It's obviously not Jabba the Hutt. But could it be Jabba's son? That was just recently confirmed to be in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, voiced by Jeremy Allen White. Tell me what you think in the comments below. But Fern, Wim, and SM-33 are one group, and they figure out that these pipes that are spitting out mud will lead them to the door. Then we cut to our other team, Jod, KB, and Neil, and they're looking at these ancient Sith texts on the wall. The strangest mystery of this show is this: why is there ancient Sith text on these walls? Yes, Captain Red had collected random cool artifacts, but ancient Sith writing on a wall? Something's not adding up there. And this scene is actually when we see the Banking Clan bathing in the mud. And like I said before, the Banking Clan is made up of the species of the Mun. And it just so happens that the legendary character of Darth Plagueis, the master to Palpatine, was also a Mun. Now obviously Plagueis has been dead for quite some time, but it's still cool. Jod, KB, and Neil get caught by the guards and have to begin to run, as Fern, Wim, and SM-33 make their way down into the caves, where they find the entrance to the lair, and where they meet what might be my new favorite character in all of Star Wars. Cathomps. Not only is he awesome, but his name is Cathomps. Cathomps helps out by opening the door to the lair, and as they climb down, the pirates arrive on Lanupa. We cut back to our heroes going through the caves as they come across skeletons that have been decapitated. One of many booby traps on their way to this lair. And as the pirates are right behind them, they kinda have to hurry, so they gotta be careful. They come across this room with what looks to be water in the middle of it, but they quickly find out that it's acid. And the riddle on the ceiling says all who enter paradise must make the greatest sacrifice. And you'd think the greatest sacrifice would be your life, but to a pirate, it's treasure. So Jod pulls out the last Old Republic credit that he has and throws it into the acid. And it works. The acid drains down, and they enter the lair of Captain Tack. However, they have to close the door quickly behind them as the pirates have caught up. Now, the booby traps are not done yet. Even in his lair, there are booby traps to stop people from taking his treasure. So Jod tells the kids to not touch anything, but look for something that could be disguised as a datapad. In this throne room, there are a few things that could be considered Easter eggs. Obviously, the lightsaber that Wim finds, but there are these strange statues, this one looking like Neil's species, and, well, a lot of gold. But as Wim is looking at this lightsaber, which by the way looks like a High Republic lightsaber, the gold and sort of white silver-ish look is very High Republic era, but he gets interrupted by banging on the door. The pirates are trying to get in, and that's when Neil finds something. On this table full of food, everything looks to be rotted except for this roast. And as Neil tries to climb up and inspect it, the floor drops out from under him. But Jod catches him. Jod is able to reach over and grab the roast, and as he does, the captain's log comes out of the ground. SM-33 taps into the data port and searches for the coordinates to At-Attin, which he does in fact find. However, Jod says, does this have access to the whole system? To which SM-33 says yes. So Jod tells him to refill the acid outside the door so that the pirates can't get in, killing some of them. And then he asks about the treasure on At-Attin. Does it really exist? And 33 says it is mentioned in the captain's log. And he plays Captain Tack Renard's log, him sitting on his throne. And like I mentioned earlier, he is wearing the same hat that Wim was wearing when they first arrived on Lanupa. But we don't really get a good look at his face. However, what he says is far more important than what he looks like, as he confirms that At-Attin's treasure is the last Old Republic mint. And no, not a breath mint. It's where they make money. Yes, make money. The eternal treasure on At-Attin is called an eternal treasure because they can print all the money that they want from this Old Republic mint. And Fern says, Jod, remember what you promised. You will take us home and you will get a fair reward. But Jod's not having it. He turns around and says, I invoke my right to challenge the captain as per the code. He wants to challenge Fern to a hand-to-hand combat to the death. And SM-33 has to follow the orders because it's the pirate code. Jod has completely stabbed these kids in the back. Now, I can't say I didn't see it coming, but this was brutal. The whole tone of this whole episode shifted like that. But Jod tells Fern just to say she yields. He doesn't have to hurt her. But Fern can't believe any of this. She can't believe it's happening. She's never seen any of this before in her life. Somebody stabbing somebody in the back like this. And as she turns around, she grabs a piece of gold and tries to swing it at Jod, which he stops with the force. He grabs Fern, takes out the knife, and puts it to her throat, to which he says, I really am sorry about this. I don't really know whether I believe him or not. But Fern screams, you are a grown-up. You can't fight us. We're just kids trying to get back home. As Wim stands up to confront Jod with the lightsaber that he found earlier. To which Jod says, careful Wim, this is not one of your stories. Wim ignites the lightsaber and it's upside down. It hits the ground and gets thrown out of his hands. The kids failed. And Fern yields. As she goes to sit next to the other three, they're sitting on top of the trap door. Jod takes the restraining bolt off of SM-33 and tells them that they need to find a way out of here. But first, take these 4 kids as prisoners for mutinous intent against their captain. And as SM-33 gets closer and closer, Wim hits the lever, and they drop down through the trap door, escaping Jod for now, but how are they going to get back home without a ship or SM-33? Jod turns around to see the lightsaber laying on the ground. He uses the force to bring it to his hand and ignites it as the episode ends. Now, I cannot emphasize this enough. This episode was absolutely incredible. The first half being all goofy and fun, and then in an instant, it all changed. Jod turned on the kids, like we expected him to, but still. Damn. From the cool little details with the banking clan and the huts, to the crazy story of Captain Tack and his lair. And, well, Wim igniting a lightsaber upside down. This episode was incredible. To me, it was the best episode so far, and I give it a 9.5 out of 10. I actually still see a possibility where this show gets even better with 3 episodes remaining. There's a lot of questions as to how these kids are going to get back home now, what Jod's plan is, how the New Republic and the pirates are going to play into all this. We got a whole week to speculate about it. And until then, tell me what you thought about this 5th episode in the comment section below. Rank it out of 10 if you have not already. But this is nothing new. This Skeleton Crew show has been nothing short of incredible. And last week's episode had a ton of Easter eggs that you might have missed as well, but I broke it all down in this video right here.